Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 1190th regular meeting and public hearing of the Livonia City Planning Commission. I wish to inform all interested persons in our audience that for petitions on tonight's agenda, which involve a question of zoning, the Planning Commission will hold the recommendation, make a recommendation to the City Council, and the City Council, after holding their own public hearing, will make the final determination as to whether a petition is approved or denied. The Planning Commission holds the only public hearing on requests for preliminary plats and/or vacating petitions. The Commission's recommendation is forwarded to the City Council for the final determination as to whether the petition is accepted or rejected. If a petition requesting a waiver of use or a site plan is denied tonight, the petitioner will have 10 days in which to appeal the decision in writing to City Council. Resolutions that are adopted by the City Planning Commission will become effective 7 days after the date of adoption. The Planning Commission and professional staff have reviewed each of these petitions upon their filing. Staff has furnished the Commission with both approving and denying resolutions, which the Commission may or may not use depending on the outcome of the proceedings tonight. If our Secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Mrs. Smiley.
Present.
Mrs. McHugh is absent. Mr. Bonjero. Here. Mr. Long.
Here.
Mr. Ventura is here. Caremagno is here. Chairman Wilshaw
Is here. And also with us tonight, we have Mark Toromina and Stephanie Reese from our Planning Department. For the folks in our audience, the way the meeting will go tonight is we'll read out each of these items that are on the agenda. There's agendas in the back of the room if you don't have one already. We will then get background information on this agenda item from our planning staff. We'll ask then the petitioner to come forward and speak to us about their petition. We may have some questions for them, and then there will be an opportunity for anyone else in our audience who wishes to speak for or against a petition to also come forward and give us their thoughts as well before we make our decision. So with that, we are going to start with item number 1 on our public hearing section of our agenda.
Petition 2022-07-02-15 submitted by Family Pharmacy, requesting approval of all plans required by sections 3.11, 5.01, and 13.13 of the Livonia Vision 21 zoning ordinance as amended in connection with a proposal to add a drive-up window to the east end of the retail shopping center at 29195 through 29215 Plymouth Road, located on the south side of Plymouth Road between Garden Avenue and Middlebelt Road in the northwest quarter of Section 36.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Toromina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is a request to add a drive-up window to the east end of the retail shopping center, which is known as Plymouth Shops. Plymouth Shops is on the south side of Plymouth Road. It's just east of Middlebelt. The property measures roughly 9/10 of an acre, includes 160 feet of frontage on Plymouth Road, and has a parcel depth of 240 feet. The zoning, as you can see from the map, is C2 general business, as are the surrounding properties. Shopping center is roughly 14,160 square feet in total size, divided into 5 units. Tenants include CNC Nails, Mattress Wholesale, Advance America Cash Advance, and a vacant space. Last year, Plymouth Shops received waiver use approval to remodel the exterior facade. You may have noticed that work recently commenced on that project and should be completed by the end of the year. The pharmacy would occupy a 20-foot wide unit, which is located at the east end of the plaza. The overall unit size is roughly 2,000 square feet. Plymouth Shops has a 0 setback along the west side of the property. It's this side that borders a shared access drive located on the adjacent commercial property. This drive is subject to an easement agreement that allows both ingress and egress for the businesses at Plymouth Shops. Big Coffee, which occupies the end unit of the adjacent retail center, currently uses this shared access drive in connection with a drive-up window operation. Let me get you familiar with the location of that. So as we talk about the east end and the west end, this is the east end where the Family Pharmacy drive-up is proposed. This is the west end, the adjacent commercial property. This is where Big Coffee is located. This is where that ingress and egress easement is located, allowing for access for the businesses and customers of the Plymouth Shops. On the east side of the property where Family Pharmacy drive-up is proposed, the building has a setback of roughly 20 feet from the lot line. This area is paved and would be restricted to one-way traffic traveling from the rear of the property to the front. Vehicles can exit Plymouth Road, exit to Plymouth Road via an approach that is located in the northeast corner of the property. So again, to familiarize you with the project, the drive-up would be located here on this side of the building. Vehicles would enter the rear of the property, travel in a northerly direction, use the drive-up window, and then exit out this approach onto Plymouth Road. Parking, as you can see, is available both in the front and the rear of the building. Along the front, parking is angled, and it's a one-way drive traffic pattern from a west to east direction. Here there are roughly 20 parking spaces available, including one barrier-free space. Parking behind the building is not well defined. This area is about 12,800 square feet, which is adequate for about 40 standard parking spaces. Customers would access the pharmacy's drive-up window via the rear parking lot, as I mentioned earlier. The approximate travel distance around this area is about 350 feet. The prescription and order pickup window is shown at approximately the midpoint along the east side of the building, which is roughly 100 feet in length. Given the expected relatively low volume of traffic that would use the drive-up window, we feel that stacking in the lane closest to the building would be adequate. Service lanes for drive-up windows are required to be at least 10 feet wide. The proposed drive-up lane shown on the plans would meet this requirement. Drive-up establishments are also required to provide a bypass lane. The plans show that the width of the service drive is wide enough to provide for a bypass lane. At its narrowest point, this drive aisle, as I mentioned, is 20 feet in width, which is sufficient for that traffic. The plan does indicate that this would be restricted to one-way traffic only from south to north. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to read out the correspondence.
Yes, please.
We have a letter dated July 13th from our engineering division that reads, "The existing building is currently serviced by water main, sewer, and storm and sanitary sewer. The drawings do not indicate any alterations to the existing services, so we do not anticipate any issues with the proposed project. One item we are concerned with is the traffic flow around the building, as the flow arrows do not seem to be correct. It would be nice to see the proposed traffic flows and how conflicts between inbound and outbound traffic will be handled. It should be noted that should the owner need to modify any of the existing utilities or do any work within the Plymouth Road right-of-way, drawings will need to be submitted to this department as well as to the Michigan Department of Transportation to determine if permits will be required." That letter is signed by David Lear, Assistant City Engineer. Next, we have a letter coming from the Livonia Fire and Rescue dated July 25th, indicating that they have no objections to the proposal. Concerns with access widths for emergency vehicles, but they do meet code. Area is general is constrictive due to parking lot arrangement. That letter is signed by Brian Kukla, Fire Marshal for the city. Next, we have a letter of no objection coming from Scott Shapansky, Sergeant of the Traffic Bureau. That letter is dated July 11th. Next is a letter from our inspection department dated July 21st that reads, "Pursuant to your request, the above referenced petition has been reviewed and the following is noted. The parking lot shall be repaired and restriped as necessary. Parking spaces shall be 10 feet wide by 20 feet deep and double striped. The exterior of the building has electrical conduit in disrepair. This safety hazard needs to be addressed. And 3, there is a 30-yard roll-off dumpster located in the rear parking lot. If additional dumpsters are required, then a plan to place them in a permanent position along with an approved enclosure would need to be provided." That letter is signed by Jerome Hanna, Director of Inspection. Next is a letter from our Department of Finance dated July 19th, wherein they indicate that there are unpaid water and sewer charges in the amount of $1,379.32. However, those are due on August the 10th. That letter is signed by Connie Cumpula, Chief Accountant. Next is a letter from our our Office of the Treasurer dated July 11th, indicating that they have no objections to the petition. That's signed by Linda Scheel, Treasurer of the City of Livonia. And the next two are letters written from nearby businesses. The first is dated August 8th, and it comes from Ed Boisson, owner of Big B Coffee, and it reads, "Dear Planning Commission, I would like to raise my concerns of allowing the addition of a drive-through to the building directly east of the Livonia Crossroads building. During our own application process for a drive-through, there were obstacles brought up by the Planning Commission and the City Council in regards to the alley that separates this building and the Livonia Crossroads building. A major concern was the use of a bypass lane for our drive-through. With Family Pharmacy operating a drive-through lane, I can think of 3 potential traffic situations. Number 1, the same alley would serve as their entry point, creating a potential traffic situation with cars pointed directly at each other if another car was utilizing the Big B Coffee bypass lane. Number 2, Family Pharmacy cars can stack up into the Big B Coffee drive-through lane, which would cause a disruption. And 3, Family Pharmacy cars entering from Middle Belt would use the Livonia Crossroads South alley, which would also disrupt the Big B Coffee drive-through lane. Thank you for taking the time to consider my concerns. Again, that's signed by Ed Boisson, Livonia resident and Big B Coffee owner. And then lastly, we have a letter from Mike Huba of Taylor Investment LLC, and it reads, I appreciate your service and the opportunity to voice my concerns about the proposed drive-through. I was here a couple of years ago when asking for approval for our Big B Coffee drive-through. However, we underwent extreme repairs and improvements to our property to achieve this approval. Some of the repairs involved the expensive removal of gas meters and the installation of new bollards, which is a requirement by the commission. The alley is owned by Taylor Investment Flint LLC and would like to make certain that Plymouth Shops LLC's use of this east alley under an easement agreement is for ingress and egress only. Any cars standing or stacking are prohibited and will be towed if violating this rule. Also, any type of loading or parking is prohibited and will become in breach of our agreement. I wish to install signs to prevent such occurrences and hope you will make this mandatory if this is approved. For everyone's safety, I want to make certain that they do not promote the use of our Middle Belt entrance in order for customers to get to their drive-through, as this will not only be dangerous for our Big B Coffee customers, but delivery drivers and others as well. Note, when we applied for the Big B drive-through, a big concern was the width of our south alley. It is not sufficient in allowing 2 vehicles side by side without it being a hazard. It is clearly labeled as one way. The use of our Middle Belt entrance is limited to our Livonia Crossroads customers and vendors only. All others are prohibited from using our entrance to cut through to another business, and parking is also limited to only our customers and vendors. The Plymouth Shops alley and the rear parking are in terrible condition and wish you enforce improved conditions such as new asphalt or concrete parking lot and better lighting. Thanks for your time. Again, that letter is signed by Mike Huba of Taylor Investments LLC. And that is the extended correspondence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tormina. Is there any questions from any of our commissioners? There's no questions. Our petitioner, I believe, is in the audience. If you'd like to come forward to our podium, either one. We'll ask that you start with your name and address for our record.
Hi, my name is Amir Sala, and I'm going to be the owner and operator of Family Pharmacy.
Thank you, sir. And is there anything else that you would like to present to us that hasn't already been discussed?
In regards to traffic flow and everything, the majority of the traffic flow would be from the Plymouth area, or from Plymouth Drive going up. And like you guys said, it was a low traffic, it's going to be a low traffic, low density drive-through. There isn't going to be that many people going through the drive-through. So I just want you to take that into consideration when making the decision.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sala. Is there any questions for any of, from any of our commissioners for our petitioner?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ventura.
at our study session, you told us that you had been told by the property owner, and it is your understanding that the plaza was going to be renovated and that all the paving around there was going to be redone?
So the owner told me that the plaza was going to be renovated, faced completely, and then down the line, patches and work to the floor into the concrete will be done, and then eventually down the line, reface and everything.
And at the study session, you told us that you already signed a lease?
Yes.
Did he put those provisions in the lease? Did he make those commitments to you in the lease?
No, just,
So you have no way to enforce that?
no, it's just, yeah, spoken.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Ventura. Any other questions for our petitioner?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Bonjero?
what's the plan down the road for dumpster enclosure or whatever? Obviously, that 30-yard dumpster can't stay there. It was a concern of the building department too. So is there plans for having a permanent dumpster behind an enclosure there?
My name is Ryan Coutu. I'm the property manager of the property. The dumpster, the 30-yard dumpster by our tenant is a temporary dumpster. It should already be removed. I contacted him and told him that it had to be removed immediately. It wasn't anything to be on a permanent basis.
Okay, what do you do for garbage removal?
I mean, that center has, besides that mattress firm, that center has extremely low garbage, and there's only like one can that literally services a small 4-yarder that services the entire center. I think that Mark Tarmino kind of remembered that in regards to our facade renovation, which is on its way now, there were possible plans within a year or two to place a dumpster enclosure in the back of the center.
And then what's the plan for the rear resurfacing?
At this point, the plan for the rear of the center would be to maintain it as best we can with weed control and patching and asphalting where we need to do. There is no plans to completely redo the entire parking lot. That would be quite extensive. But obviously, we didn't have a real need where we have now to make it more presentable, you know, and so our job would be to try to make it as presentable as best we can, whether it be some striping, you know, weeding, patching, and whatever else needs to be done, and keeping it clean.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bonjero. Any questions, Ms. Smiley?
Yes, good evening. You said you're the manager. Are you authorized to put something in writing for this gentleman regarding the parking?
I'm manager owner.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Smiley. Any questions for petitioner or the building representative?
Chairman.
Mr. Ventura?
It's Mr. Coutu?
Yes.
Correct?
I see that
Uh,
right.
You received approval from the council last year to redo your center, and it was before the planning commission went to the council, you got approval, and you haven't begun yet. Can you tell us when you will begin and when you anticipate being done?
Sure. Mark Tarnamina might have mentioned earlier that the project has started. It started on Monday. If you go there now, you'll see a full scaffold system in front of the entire center, and they have started demoing the old masonry brick. You know, if I was to go to you what my contractor says when it's gonna be done, you know,
It's good to get some
60
bidding, right?
days,
Yeah.
you know, 2 weeks, right? But I would estimate 60 days. 60 to 90 days.
Right, okay.
Okay.
And have you given any thought to the signage that seems to be everyone's concern? We talked about it at the study session, and we have a couple letters, and how do you anticipate you're gonna direct traffic on the site so that customers for the drive-through, for the pharmacy drive-through, don't obstruct the drive-through, the shared drive that you share with Bigby and
Sure.
so forth?
In reality, if you look at the site, for him to start obstructing the Big B drive-through, I would think we'd have to have about 20 cars stacked. I mean, it's a pretty large, it's a pretty large
I don't necessarily
distance.
mean
Yeah, it's a-
stacking. I agree with you. You're not gonna stack that much. But
Right,
how are
so,
you gonna direct traffic on the site to know where to go to get to his drive-through? If you go next door to Crossroads, you'll look in the parking lot and you'll see signs in the parking lot directing people to the Big B drive-through. That's how they find it. How are you gonna accomplish
well,
that?
it kind of seems to want to say, you want to say something?
Yeah, so I was planning on putting in a little sign right up along Plymouth Drive, the same way that the Big B has it on Middle Belt Drive, going in, notifying that it is a drive-through going through it up that way. And then a sign along the, what side is that? The west side of the wall of the building, directing that on the corner, upper corner, and then one against the south wall, like a protruding sign. Drive-through only. And then there's a little patch of grass that's part of our property, and I wanted to put another sign on the end of it showing going this way.
Okay, Mark, are those signs part of this package?
I don't believe we have any information or details relative to the directional signage. Did I, and if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr.
could you repeat where you intend to install those? If I think I heard you say you're gonna put one near Plymouth Road at
So
the
we got one
entrance.
on, Plymouth Road, and then another one back at right at that corner, to the right. Down, right at that corner. and then one all the way to the left. Yep. And it's like a protruding sign on the top of the building, the same way that the Bigby has it.
It's a, like a bracket,
Yeah, like the bracket.
like a bracket on, attached to the building to, guide them. It's not too much of a labyrinth, I mean, it'd be pretty easy to kind of see how to get around the building.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Tormina, do you have any other thoughts?
No, two of the three signs that were mentioned, I don't think would be subject to any sign regulations. The one near Plymouth Road, maybe we'd have to take a look at that. If it's small enough, it would probably be allowed as directional signage within the limitation. I think there's a 2 square foot limitation. The signs in the back, since they would not be visible to the public right-of-way, would be, or something that would be allowed, and so he could do what's necessary in order to properly direct traffic to the drive-up at the rear of the building.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Tormina. Any other questions for our petitioner or the representative, Mr. Caremagno?
Chair. I wasn't able to be at the study session, so currently, you have the ability to enter the back of your lot from both the east and west side of the building?
Correct.
And do you have the ability to enter the back of your property in the alley off of Middle Belt as well?
The buildings connect in the back, so if you're to say that someone can drive up to the Middle Belt side, I don't know if that's two-way or one-way. Mark, is that two-way on that side or one-way?
And, this is, if I may,
Go ahead, Mr. Tormina.
I believe this is now restricted to one-way traffic, or at least that's the goal of the owner of the Livonia Crossroads Shopping Center. So that's what he was mentioning. So when he was talking about the inability of customers to use this portion of the alleyway behind the business, it's this, the easement exists along this side of the property. So the easement that allows drivers to access Plymouth Shops from Livonia Crossroads is restricted only to the west side of the property, does not include the east side of the property. Not from a legal standpoint. I mean, from a practical standpoint, can you navigate back there? And the two are connected, as Mr. Coutu said. There's no grade separation here between the properties, so it's all relatively passable.
Okay, thank you. And then the property to the east of your property through the parking lot, was that not open at one time where you could get through from the neighboring property as well?
I would assume so. I mean, as long as I remember, there's always been gigantic blocks there blocking us between the property next door. And it's always, we haven't placed those there. So we assume it might have been placed by the owner next door.
Okay.
But
So you're gonna have one way in, one way out, and a very restricted lane going in with the coffee shop coming out, which is a bit of a concern. Let me ask you this, deliveries for this property, truck deliveries you got a mattress store, a cash store, you're gonna have a pharmacy. How are deliveries handled for these businesses?
the only store that has any kind of larger deliveries would be the mattress store. I mean, you got a nail salon, which is not gonna have any major deliveries. The pharmacy is not gonna have any large deliveries. How are they handled? You know, I haven't really been there when they're making their deliveries. I would assume that they make the deliveries through the back or even in through the front, but I can't tell you exactly how it's being done.
I would think that's probably a legitimate issue if you're delivering mattresses to the mattress store in the front parking lot. You tie that whole deal up with one delivery truck.
We've owned this property for 15 years and never had an issue.
Has it always been full of tenants?
It's always been 90% full, yeah. We only have one vacancy, which recently, that vacancy has only been the last 5 years. So never had anybody, you know, our tenants are very mindful of being good neighbors.
And let's go back to the garbage truck and the 4-yard can you said you had, so the garbage truck would have to enter next to the Bigby parking as well, or make his way through behind the the neighboring strip mall to the west.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, to be honest, the neighbor next door needs our parking, needs our lot to service their cans. So, if we didn't give them access, they would not be able to service their cans.
I remember the enclosure, we changed the way the enclosure was for
Right.
for purposes of traffic. I think you're right there.
Yeah, I'm 100% confident on that one. I mean, it's-
Mr. Tormina?
Yeah, if I may, yes, just to, so that everyone fully understands, the enclosure and the dumpsters are located roughly here on the adjacent property, and the only way to access those would be for the vehicle to come in forward this way across the property. And if I may, Mr. Chair, the petitioner, even though this is marked as one way, do you really intend to prohibit vehicles from entering the back of the store along this westerly driveway? I mean, are you going to post no, one way only? How would you regulate that, or do you intend to keep that somewhat loose in terms of allowing vehicles? Because just like this driveway over here, vehicles still enter on the left-hand side, and I expect the same thing would occur here. When they don't see any cars along the alleyway, I think it's safe to say vehicles would still come to the back.
Yeah, I agree with you.
On the east side.
I mean, quite frankly, technically, through that easement agreement on the neighbor, which I'm surprised he made a complaint, he cannot deny access in and out. So here he is saying that he's worried about access out only, where in the easement agreement, he's not allowed to restrict that. So it's kind of funny that he brought that up.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with you, Mark. I think that that east side has to remain both ways, in and out. I think it's just too tight if you restrict it to outbound as well. I don't know how you patrol it, like you said, but I think it needs to remain both in and out. That's all I got. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Caramagna. Mr. Long?
Mr. Salah?
Yes.
You said at the study session that you were, at the start anyway, you're gonna be the sole employee there. And while I agree that stacking probably is not gonna be a concern, if you are the sole employee there and you've got 3 people in the store and the cars start to back up, I mean, what's your plan for handling that?
I mean, my plan is in that moment would be first focus drive-through. I mean, it won't be that heavily traveled, but my first focus would be drive-through, just so there won't be stacking.
Okay, and I mean, I agree that, we'd have to see 15, 20 cars in order to really have a
Actually, we
problem.
kind of hope he gets pretty busy.
Yeah, no, I do too. I mean, if we're
And
gonna,
then when I do end up getting busier, I will be getting technicians.
then
It's
you
just
add
saying at the
employees.
very start, it's just gonna be me, then technicians will be coming along.
no, that'd be good. I mean, I have concerns over this, just like I had concerns over the big B1, but ultimately, we passed it, and I mean, it's trying to retrofit today's needs into these older buildings, right? I mean, that's the challenge. There's things I don't like about this, but, I think I can support it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Any other questions or comments, Ms. Smiley?
One question for Mark. The condition of the parking lot, was that in the thing that was approved, that just got started a couple weeks ago?
The resolution that was adopted by council did address the maintenance of the rear parking lot. Yes, that was part of the council resolution.
Yeah, I imagined it was, but I just wanted to confirm. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments from any of our commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I do got another.
Go ahead, Mr. Caramagna.
The last time I drove behind the building, there's a mattress store, obviously. There are mattresses leaning against the building on the ground. What is the long-term plan for keeping up with that? Because it's rather unsightly.
Yeah, obviously, with our new tenant, has a lot, a big interest in customers coming back there, it would be policed a lot more. Sometimes out of sight, out of mind is not, no one complains about it, is overseen, but I will definitely have to address them that this cannot cannot continue, and it would be policed very hard to keep that area clean.
Is there really a good reason why you just allow the tenant to throw mattresses on the
No,
ground?
I don't
behind the building?
allow the tenant just to throw mattresses out there. Sometimes tenant do things without your permission, and you gotta go back there and tell them, hey, keep these out of here, and he does, and sometimes they do it again. I don't allow that to happen.
I'd certainly like to see you tighten that up quite a bit.
Yeah, sure.
It's real unsightly when you go back there sometimes. It just, I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
Well, now we have a different scenario where we have a tenant that needs to utilize the back, so that's gotta be always kept up and maintained now. We understand that.
I hear that, but I don't necessarily agree with that. Just because you've got another tenant means all of a sudden mattresses are gonna start being picked up. I mean, that's something that should have been taken care of a long time ago, but,
Okay.
as long as you're gonna be on that.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Caremagna. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against this petition? I don't see anybody jumping out of their chair. Mr. Katu, Mr. Salah, anything else that either of you would like to add before we make our decision?
No, we just really appreciate your time and look forward to having this nice young man start his first business here on his own.
All right, sounds good, thank you. With that, if there's no other questions or comments from anybody, I will close the public hearing, and a motion is in order.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ventura.
I'd like to offer an approving resolution that the request to add a drive-up window to the east end of the retail shopping center at 29-195 through 29-215 Plymouth Road is hereby approved, subject to city council approval and the following conditions. Number one, that the site plan identified as drawing number SP-01, dated June 6, 2022, prepared by Angle Design and Construction LLC, is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. Number two, that the elevation plans, plural, identified as drawings, plural, number A-02 and A-03, dated June 6, 2022, prepared by Angle Design and Construction LLC, are hereby approved and shall be adhered to. Number three, that all facade improvements approved pursuant to council resolution number 131-21 in connection with petition number 2021-02-08-02 shall be completed. Number four, that coincident with the completion of the drive-up window for the family pharmacy, the owner shall make all necessary interim repairs to the parking lot as determined by the inspection department. And within 2 years from the date of approval of this petition by city council, the site's rear parking lot shall be repaired, resealed, and restriped as necessary to the satisfaction of the inspection department, and the site's trash dumpsters shall be enclosed pursuant to council resolution number 131-21. Number five, that the use of the drive-up window for family pharmacy use only, and any new user or use of the drive-up window shall first receive the approval of the city council. Number six, that the specific plans referenced in this approving resolution shall be submitted to the inspection department at the time the building permits are applied for. And number seven, pursuant to section 13.13 of Livonia Vision 21 zoning ordinance as amended, this approval is valid for a period of 1 year only from the date of approval by the city council. And unless a building permit is obtained, this approval shall be null and void at the expiration of said period. And Mr. Tormina, I'm going to add number 8 here, to the effect that site signage as discussed here at this meeting shall be submitted to the planning department and the inspection department and approved by them before a certificate of occupancy is.
That sounds reasonable. You understand that, Mr. Tormina?
I do.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Ventura.
And that's it.
All right, and we'll see if there's support for that motion.
Support.
I hear it from, we'll go with Mrs. Smiley. And is there any discussion on the motion to approve? I hear no discussion. If the secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Mr. Ventura,
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley,
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero,
Aye.
Mr. Long,
Aye.
Caremagna votes aye, Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes aye, motion passes. We'll go to city council with an approving recommendation, and we wish you good luck with your new business.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
And if we're ready with this item, we'll now move on to item number 2.
Petition 2022-07-02-16, submitted by LAG Development, requesting approval of all plans required by section 3.11, 6.05, and 6.06 of the Livonia Vision 21 zoning ordinance as amended, in connection with a proposal to redevelop the La Fontaine Hyundai of Livonia dealership, including construction of an addition, modifying both the interior and exterior of the building, and altering the site's parking and landscaping at 34715 and 34801 Plymouth Road, located on the south side of Plymouth Road between Stark and Wayne Roads in the northwest quarter of section 33.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Toromina.
Thank you. Again, this is a request to expand and remodel the Hyundai dealership, which is located at the southwest corner of Plymouth Road and Laurel Avenue. The subject site consists of 2 parcels with a total combined land area of 2.6 acres. The site has 348 feet of frontage on Plymouth Road and roughly 328 feet of frontage on Laurel. Included as part of the overall project is the former Doughboy Donut site that was recently acquired by LAG Livonia LLC and was rezoned to C2 for this purpose. The existing L-shaped dealership building is located on the east half of the site. This building contains a gross floor area of roughly 14,687 square feet. The expansion would be to the northwest corner of the building and totals roughly 6,728 square feet, bringing the total floor area to roughly 21,415 feet upon completion. Of this, the service department would occupy roughly 55% of the total floor space, or roughly 11,932 square feet. So a large part of this expansion is needed to accommodate a larger service area. The remaining areas of the floor space would be divided between the dealership's various other uses and operations. This includes the showroom and sales, parts, administration, and other customer amenities such as the lounge areas. The new service department would contain 15 work bays. There would be 3 overhead doors located on the building's north side, which would provide drive-in access into the service area. Then there would be 2 additional overhead doors located on the west side of the building. So just to familiarize everyone with the site, and maybe this is not the best plan, this plan probably shows it a little better. The existing building is located here, kind of in an L-shaped configuration. The addition would be located here in the northwest corner of the building. The former donut shop property that was referenced is located in this part of the site. This is being added to the LAG site, thereby increasing the total parcel area, as I indicated, to about 2.6 acres. As you can also see, there would be significant changes to the site's circulation and parking pattern. Incorporating the former donut property will allow for full access around the building. The site's 4 access points would remain. This includes 3 driveways on Plymouth Road and two of which are on the former donut property, and then the 4th is located on Laurel Avenue, about 230 feet south of Plymouth Road. Instead of eliminating this drive approach, as was discussed at the study meeting, the latest plans show restricted access from Laurel Avenue via a private gate. 2 westerly driveways on the former donut property would provide ingress and egress from Plymouth Road to the 2 main drive aisles that would run the full length of the property. So you can see now how these drive aisles extend from Plymouth Road, which is located on the north side, all the way to the south end of the property, can loop back around and exit out, or vice versa in either direction, as these would provide for 2-way access in these drive aisles. And then also you can see how the access would wrap around to the east side of the building and would allow for continued circulation around the front or the north side of the building as well. The new plans show 11 vehicle stacking spaces at the service entrance. This includes 7 spaces that would be outside of the service reception area, and then an additional 4 spaces inside the reception area. In terms of parking, what's required is based on the number of service bays, the number of employees, and the amount of showroom floor area. When you add all these together, there are a total of 72 parking spaces that are required. The plans show 128 parking spaces, so this effectively would leave 56 spaces available for vehicle display purposes. A special requirement under section 6.05 that applies to the parking of display vehicles is that there be at least 20 feet between the parking of these cars in the public right-of-way. The plans do show that all of the parking spaces along Plymouth Road would meet this requirement and would be at least 20 feet back from the right-of-way. On the exterior of the building, let me jump to that. That would include materials, the materials mostly include aluminum composite panels, EIFS, as well as concrete masonry units. EIFS is shown extensively on the building, including the front and side elevations, but as requested, burnished block was added to the lower portion of the building where the previous plans showed EIFS. So if you look carefully at the revised plans, particularly along the north and the west elevations, this is the north elevation. So this is the side of the building that would face Plymouth Road. The aluminum composite panels are the material, the dark brown material here shown along the top portion of the building. These are the overhead doors that were mentioned. The EIFS material is this lighter coloring that is between the aluminum panels and then the base material, which has been modified to a burnished block. So that extends, I think, roughly 4 feet up from the grade and is no longer EIFS, but instead a masonry material. Along the back of the building where there's already masonry, in order to keep the pattern consistent, the block material would be painted along that lower 4 feet. It would be added in other places of the building, as you can see on these elevation views. Back to the landscaping plan. Frontage along Plymouth Road requires 7 full-size trees, 3 ornamental trees, and 51 shrubs. Along Laurel, the plans require 8 full-size trees, 3 ornamentals, and 66 shrubs. The submitted landscape plan does show added plantings along both street frontages in order to comply with the ordinance. In the case of Laurel Avenue, the trees and shrubs would be planted in the public right-of-way, and this is because of the fact that there is really no green space that exists between the building and the property line. So it would be located between the sidewalk, excuse me, from the between the property line and the actual traveled portion of the road. On the south side, there would be new arborvitaes planted in the areas where there are gaps presently. Thank you. And then on the west side of the property, additional trees would be added in order to meet the zoning ordinance requirements. We do have details on site lighting. That's in the form of a photometric plan. I believe I have that in this packet. This is the photometric plan. We also have some details relative to the light poles. They would be limited to a height of 20 feet as required, and it would appear to meet all of the requirements of the ordinance relative to illumination levels. And then lastly, we have a single dumpster enclosure that is shown in the southwest corner of the parking lot. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to read out the correspondence.
Sure, feel free to pause for a moment if you
Yeah, thanks, I appreciate that. Okay, item number 1 from the treasurer is a letter dated July 12th indicating that they have no objections to the petition at this time. That's a letter signed by Linda Shield, treasurer of the city of Livonia. Next, we have a letter from the engineering division dated July 13th. That reads, the existing buildings are serviced by public water main, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer. The submitted drawings do not show information regarding the removal of existing or placement of new service leads, so we cannot comment on impacts to the existing systems at this time. Prior to demolition, the developer will need to disconnect existing leads to the structure on the westerly parcel, which will require operations in the right-of-way to reach the mains. It should be noted that the developer will need to meet the current engineering requirements for the proposed project, including stormwater detention per the Wayne County Stormwater Ordinance for any areas of newly placed pavement/structures. Also, the developer will be required to obtain a permit from this office, as well as the Michigan Department of Transportation, for any work occurring within the Plymouth Road right-of-way. This department will be able to make a formal review of the proposed improvements when detailed engineering plans are submitted for permitting. That letter is signed by David Layer, Assistant City Engineer. Next is a letter from our Livonia Fire and Rescue dated July 22nd. That reads, we have no objections to this proposal. Chapter 18 shall be followed for required fire hydrant and water supply NFPA 1 of 2015. A further detailed plan review will take place when this division receives the official plan set. And that letter is signed by Brian Kukla, fire marshal. Next is a letter of no objection coming from our Division of Police Traffic Bureau, signed by Scott Shapansky, Sergeant. That letter is dated July 13th. Letter of no objection from the Inspection Department dated July 21st and signed by Jerome Hanna, Director of Inspection. A letter from our Assessment Department dated July 14th that reads, LAG Development requesting approval of plans for the redevelopment of the LaFontaine dealership. Based on the site plan documents, it appears these parcels should be combined. Please direct any questions to the Assessor's Office or livonia.gov for the lot combination process. Also, just as an observation, the site plans indicate the city of Livonia being in Oakland County. That letter is signed by Kathy Sitterlet, residential appraiser. Next, we have a letter from the, it's interesting that the assessor caught that. That hasn't anyone else. Next is a letter from the Department of Finance dated July 19th, wherein they indicate that there are unpaid false alarm charges due upon receipt in the amount of $200, as well as unpaid water and sewer charges in the amount of $538.86 due on August 10th. And that letter is signed by Connie Cumpula, Chief Accountant. And lastly, we have a letter from a resident, James Dupuy, who gives his address at 1196 Laurel Street. And it reads, I wish to offer the following input regarding the request by LAG. I do not oppose the demolition of this building or the use for storage and display. However, as a 28-plus year resident of Laurel Street, I have attended several meetings related to our neighboring businesses. There is an existing Council Resolution 182-03 adopted by the Livonia City Council on April 23rd, 2003, with conditions that read in part, for safety purposes, the parking or standing of delivery trucks and car haulers on Laurel Avenue is strictly prohibited. All vehicle loading and unloading at this dealership shall be accomplished on the premises only and not within any public rights-of-way as shown on the truck hauler unload area plan marked sheet A, 1A of 4, dated March 13th, 2003. We would appreciate that consideration be given to designate an area in this parcel for loading and unloading car haulers and tow trucks. I met with Mr. Matt Zabla in September of 2021 to discuss my concerns. He related that they have an off-site location for this practice, but I believe it is often ignored by hauling and towing companies. Car haulers continue to use Laurel for loading and unloading vehicles. Most often they drive south on Laurel Street when finished offloading. This continues to be the practice, and as recent as yesterday, February 21st, 2022, a car hauler drove south from the dealership. Thanks for your consideration. Again, this is provided by James Dupree, 11196 Laurel Street. And I believe there is, Commissioner should have copies of that letter as well as all the attachments, which are, I believe, all photographs showing the conditions of the site and the use of the Laurel Street by car haulers. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions or for our planning director?
Quick one.
Smiley, yes.
Yeah, why a gate on Laurel? The gate doesn't say no admission to the property, it says sometimes. Off Laurel.
I am going to defer that question to the petitioners.
Okay,
It's fair
Thank you.
enough. Fair enough. I think we will ask them what the thought process is there. Any other questions for our planning director? If not, we have our petitioner in the audience. They're welcome to come forward at this time. Good evening, ma'am.
Elizabeth Marchese, Lag Development, 9990 Highland Road, Howell, Michigan.
Thank you, and good evening.
Good evening.
And is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about your petition?
To answer the question about the gate, it was discussed at the study meeting that we would close the entrance on Laurel. We talked about that with our site engineer and as well as some of our other consultants. They recommended putting a permanent gate up with a lockbox on it, the knock box that only the police department has access to, just because that will be the primary entrance for the service department from a fire department standpoint. They can get back around the building instead of having to come in off of Plymouth Road. They can go from Laurel as well as Plymouth. We also want to put a large sign on there, 2 large signs, redirecting those third-party car haulers that we've been faced with since the pandemic. We no longer have the Teamsters and the union haulers bringing in the big car haulers. We have the small mom and pops that are coming in. We'd rather have a sign there that redirects them down street to where our lot is for unloading. We do also believe that having the 2 additional drive access on Plymouth Road where the donut shop used to be would also allow for car haulers and people bringing tow trucks in, as well as picking up cars in and out of the site without having to access Laurel. But we just felt comfortable with that gate there for emergency access only. It would not be our key, it would be the fire department's knockbox, like they have on all the buildings.
Right. Okay, Ms. Smiley, does that
So to
satisfy that
clarify
question?
that,
Yeah,
our city engineer that said that the fire department wanted that access,
no, it's not your engineer, no, it would be our consultant. It was private to us that recommended a gate.
did you hear from our fire department saying they wanted access that way?
No, we did not, but we have on all commercial properties, we have a knockbox, which is, I guess, kind of like a Kleenex version. It's an emergency box on the building to get a key to the actual building that the fire departments have. We would have one on the gate as well.
I'm unfamiliar with that. Is that common practice, Mr. Toromeo?
It's common to have Knox boxes, usually for gated entrances and drives to private properties. Many of our condominium associations that are gated, or other businesses, commercial and industrial, that are gated for security purposes are required to install those Knox boxes, yeah. So
And the
it is a common practice.
It's basically a key box that the fire department has
I know
access
what
to.
it is,
yeah.
I just didn't know why it had to be on Laurel.
Right.
Yeah, I will say that our fire department reviewed these plans at a time when that driveway was still, it was shown as being open. So they have not reviewed, they never reviewed the question of closing it off permanently with landscaping. So we don't have their input relative to whether, it should be closed permanently.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for our petitioner, Mr. Long?
Thank you. Just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Did you say that you would not have a key to that gate at all? Is that-
correct.
That's correct.
I guess I don't necessarily see the wisdom of that. I wouldn't want you leaving it open or using it regularly, but it just would seem like you might need to
Well, but
open
if
the
it's
gate.
permanently closed, we still wouldn't have access to it. So if we saw cut and put curbing and planting in, it would be essentially to us and our use, just like putting that gate there without having access to it.
No, I understand that, and I mean, I agree with that, but I guess if you make the decision to leave the gate there, I just think that you may want to have some kind of access to it, with your, I wouldn't want you to see 20 keys for it, but, you might want one. If a car hauler, despite all your best efforts for the last 20 years, you can't keep them off Laurel all the time. And so if you had somebody there, maybe you can direct them through there instead of having seen them go south down Laurel Street. It's just my opinion or my comment, and I'm not sure that that's the best way to handle that, but that's all that it is. It's just a comment. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Long.
Hey,
Any other?
good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'd
Yes.
just like to interject. My name is Gary Landroche with Lag Development, 9990 East Highland. I guess what our thought was that we thought the fire department would prefer to have access. If they try to come up next to the building on Laurel, it's a single driveway there with the vehicles parked in there. It just seemed like a means of additional access for them in case they needed to get in there. We would have no use of that driveway because we don't have a key. And typically in any community, the building owners don't have keys for the knock boxes. It's only the authorities that have that key. That would be a permanently locked gate that they could access only, so we would still have no use of that drive. And to Elizabeth's point, she thought, well, if we had a gate there, that we could even add a couple signs to it to try to discourage it even further. We don't have an objective to putting the driveway, or closing the driveway, you know, if that's really what you guys prefer. We thought that the fire department would appreciate having another means of egress in the back of the site. That's the only reason that we included it.
Yeah, I think I understand where you guys are coming from. You're trying to assuage our concerns or satisfy us that this isn't going to be a gate that's going to be swinging open all the time and having cars being delivered through there. And I understand that, but you're also still giving us the option of fully closing that or making it a gate. That's really our choice, but you're giving us an alternative that you may think that we find more acceptable. I don't know. So we'll see how things go.
Sure.
And which way we want to go on this. Is there any questions about anything other than the gate from anybody? I think we've talked that one through.
Mr. Long? I appreciate all the work that you put in. I see all the little changes that we talked about at the study meeting, the rounded, the elimination of the 2 parking spaces and the rounding of the island there. And, I like, again, I like this project. I think we may have some people in the audience who want to speak to it. But I think the petitioner did a good job addressing our concerns.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Long, for those comments. Any other questions or comments from any of our commissioners? Quiet bunch at the moment. Let's see if there's anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak on this item. Feel free to come forward. And again, we'll just ask that you start with your name and address so we know who we're talking to.
Good evening.
Good
My
evening.
name is Jim Dupuy. I'm at 11196 Laurel, Livonia, 48150. Hi, Mark. You read the first letter I sent. I sent you all an email. I'm assuming you had it with the pictures.
We do.
Okay, I only attached so many because I didn't have much room. The only opinion I have on whether it's a gate, I actually like the idea of having it closed off. The only reason the gate concerns me is intentions are great at the beginning. There's a gate on the east side of Laurel that haulers come and drop off and pick up from there too. So it's not just the west side. This happened to be, in my so many years there, this is the 3rd owner of that dealership, and we've kind of gone around the city many times on this. This is not just a Monday through Friday thing, folks. This is Saturdays, Sundays, Easter. I don't care what day it is. Any time of the day or night. They don't care when they're dropping these cars off. It makes no difference to them. They're on the clock. So it's not just, if it were just once in a while, it'd be fine. The only reason I sent you those pictures after the last meeting was because one of the representatives said, there wasn't a truck there today. I was a little upset. They're there every day. I'm still working, so I can't sit out there and take pictures of every truck, but they're all sizes, all shapes, all different configurations. And my comment about the signs, which I know they've made an attempt, it's tough to get it to work because every hauler, everyone has one of these. Some have 2 of them. They get dispatched from all over. There's no reason they can't get a text, which are free. Please don't go to the street. Call this number for directions. Until such time as a decision is made about the gate or closing it off, there has to be a remedy to this. This has been going on way too long. I'm just asking for your help. Otherwise, the new group, the LAG, they watch things, it's very clean. I like what they've done already so far. So I'm not against them making money and being there. It's great. I just need their help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dupuy. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak for or against this petition? We have one more gentleman coming forward. Good evening, sir.
Hi, folks. James Arnold, 11205 Laurel. I'm on the north side of the commercial wall, and I'd like to talk about maybe the 8 feet of the commercial wall. There's 328 feet. I pay taxes on 288 feet of that. Basically, they've made other areas beautiful, but the 8 feet that's on the commercial wall is not looking so good. It needs some help, it needs some attention. They have caps that are coming up that I've presented to them that there's a problem with. They, the cap is coming off the wall basically at like 180 feet. There's 150 feet that's, could use power washing. It's, there's a big pile of brush. There's tree logs like right next to the commercial wall. There's a pile of mulch. There's weeds that are over 6 feet tall, that are taller than me, weeds. Now, they've made other areas beautiful, but they've just forgotten about the commercial wall. There's a pile of blocks with woodchuck holes all around it, tree stumps. They just put 2 nice dumpsters in, but they're just full of debris all around them, garbage around them. So I ask if we could clean that area up. I don't oppose making things nicer, you know. It's all gonna be nicer, but, you know, let's clean our room, you know, and pick our closet up, what we got. Thank you for your time.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Thank you. Anyone else in our audience wishing to speak for or against this item? If not, I don't see anyone else. We will always go back to our petitioner and give them an opportunity to make any final comments. Welcome back.
Hi, welcome back.
So
Can you show me, he said the north wall, I wanted to address it. We are in the process of going through and doing upgrades on all of our landscaping and our weeds. We've started at Volkswagen, we're heading towards Mazda. I'd be really curious as to where the 8 feet is, so if we can get together afterwards and address on the wall. Also, I believe Matt Zabla, who is the general manager, is going to be here to address it, and I'll meet with the gentleman on that.
Okay, we'll have you work separately with him
Perfect.
after. I appreciate that.
Right. Again, we have no problem with a gate or with closing off the right-of-way.
Okay.
We just wanted to offer something up for the police and the fire.
And if there are areas of the wall that are in need of repair, are you willing to make those improvements or repairs?
Yes, absolutely,
Okay, all right. So
absolutely.
that's something that we can consider as we move forward. So anything else that you would like to end with before we make our decision?
No, I think we stated it all. We tried to accommodate all of the neighbors. We do want to be a good neighbor. We've put lights up that are motion sensors. We try to keep it clean. You met our new sales manager last time at the study meeting, Calvin. He's on his honeymoon, so he wouldn't be here, but he is very, very adamant about trying to improve the site.
Well, great, and we do appreciate, as Mr. Long stated, we gave you sort of a laundry list of improvements or things that we thought, you know, could be made a little bit better, the plan.
Right.
And we see that you've checked all those boxes, so we do appreciate you working with us on those requests as well.
Right.
In terms of building materials, things like that.
Correct.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments from any of our commissioners? Mr. Bonjero?
Sure. In lieu of Mr. Dupuis' concern, like, do you send out texts and instructions so that nobody goes down Laurel? I think that's the biggest concern here, you know, it's a great thing that you're doing, no one's against it, they're in full support, it's just that, how do you stop these guys from going down there? When I drove by there tonight, the sign that's up there is not real visible, like, I kinda went past, I didn't really notice it. So, you know, if the texts don't work, there's gotta be something that, can we do a bigger sign? I don't know, you know what I mean? Something, another measure to take that hassle, you know, that worry from them. Because what else can we do?
Yeah, Mr. Dupree, and again, I apologize. I understand that this has been an ongoing annoyance for you. It has been a struggle, trying to get these guys reeled in. The problem is when we order cars from the O&M, they go to their dispatch, and they're the ones who allocate what vehicle comes there. We don't like call somebody and say, hey, bring us the cars. We don't have the driver's numbers. We can't just text them. We do have a standing rule with the manufacturers, when we get it from, that our vehicles are to be delivered down the road at the address designated. These guys, they Google map it on the road and they see where Hyundai is, and they pull into the lot, right, or whatever. We have to do a better job policing that. We understand that. It's something that we're trying to ingrain. It's part of a new system that needs to be incorporated to all of our functions. The guys are typically out chasing customers, looking to sell cars, right? So we've tried to ingrain this in our managers, that it has to be something that's addressed and policed by us. And we need to do a better job of that, and I realize that. We have had a challenge with, as Elizabeth mentioned, the manufacturers aren't really using the union Teamster car haulers, and the regular guys that we used to get who know a site. Typically, we'll have 2 or 3 regular drivers who come in and know the routine once they learn it. Because of the vehicle shortages and the chip shortages, they're not shipping full truckloads of cars. They're using a bunch of these independent contractors who are really, they're just a vehicle for hire. They go to any dealership, any brand, anybody who will send, have them cars to haul. And so what happens is we'll get new people in there. We'll get guys that don't follow our protocols. And we've talked to Calvin, who's our new manager, who just started at that store. And again, it's our responsibility to convey this to all management and to make sure it gets passed on, because we do change hands and they get different managers in there. Matt Zabla is also manager at our Dearborn complex, so he's not on site all the time. Calvin is, he manages this store, he needs to be there, and he's completely aware, more so now than ever, of the importance of him having to police that. Have a designated guy to watch for it, do something. If we catch a car hauler out there, they need to go in there and stop them, get them to get out of there, go down the road where it belongs.
Is there a time, like, so you're expecting deliveries at a time, right? They're saying they're gonna come there at 9 o'clock in the morning. They're
They
not
give us,
just
they
random
give us a
drops.
window.
So then there may be a spotter, that's gotta be watching for these guys, and they're running out there, whoa.
That's what we talked about, having him have a porter who's responsible to keep your eye on the road. It's just a sacrifice we have to make, right, to do this.
Right.
We understand Mr. Dupree's concern 100%. We are taking measures to try to correct that, minimize it, to get them to go down the street. To Elizabeth's point, we're not encouraging car haulers to come in off of the driveways through the old donut shop, but I would almost think that would be where they would try to go, even if they're not supposed to, as opposed to Laurel, so that could actually help this to some degree. We don't want the congestion and any concern with traffic or right-of-way. So we'll continue to police that, and we'll work a little harder on that, and again, we'll ingrain that into our corporate culture. It's what these guys have to do with all the stores there. We have major renovations coming up on the other 2 dealerships as well that you haven't seen in front of you yet, but all the manufacturers are mandating these, and again, I apologize, and Mr. Arnold, to you as well. We have, we've taken on quite a task when we purchased these stores. They were completely run down, neglected. They hadn't gotten any attention. All the systems were failing in there. The lots were in shambles. It's been a pretty big undertaking to get it where it is currently, and then we're doing these major renovations to these stores as well. So we're really, our objective here is to create a very well-received show place that's gonna be up to the standards of this community, what it should be, and that includes the back wall. We'll fix that cap at 180 feet and power wash it and get rid of the weeds. That's part of this. We're doing landscaping as part of this plan on that south side as well. So, like I said, no excuses. We've not done a good enough job at policing those car haulers, but it is something that we're ingraining into our management.
I appreciate you taking ownership of that, but you guys have done a great job, and you're showing them that you're workable, and it's not something you're gonna ignore, so.
It's not.
Hopefully going forward, it's gonna improve
We
greatly.
know we have improvements still to make.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bonjero. Any other questions or comments before we make our decision? I don't see anything else, so with that, I'll close the public hearing, and a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Long.
I'd like to offer an approving resolution that the request to redevelop the LaFontaine Hyundai of Livonia dealership at 34715 and 34801 Plymouth Road is hereby approved, subject to city council approval on the following conditions. Number one, that the dimensional site plan identified as sheet number C3 dated August 5th, 2022, as revised, prepared by NF engineers, is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. Number two, that no vehicles for sale or lease shall be displayed closer than 20 feet to the public right-of-way. Number three, that all parking spaces shall be double striped at 10 feet wide by 20 feet in length. Number four, that the display of any vehicles on car lifts is strictly prohibited. Number five, that the landscape plan identified as sheet number L2 dated August 5th, 2022, as revised, prepared by NF engineers, is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. Number six, that all disturbed lawn areas shall be sodded in lieu of hydroseeding. Number seven, that underground sprinklers are to be provided for all landscaped and sodded areas, and all planted materials shall be installed to the satisfaction of the inspection department, and thereafter permanently maintained in a healthy condition. Number eight, that the elevations plan identified as A2.1, dated July 28th, 2022, as revised, prepared by Studio Detroit Architects, is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. Number nine, that all rooftop mechanical equipment shall be concealed from the public view on all sides by screening that shall be of a compatible character, material, and color to other exterior materials on the building. Number 10, that the three walls of the trash dumpster area shall be constructed out of building materials that shall complement that of the building. The enclosure gates shall be of solid panel steel construction or durable, long-lasting solid panel fiberglass. Number 11, that all new pole-mounted light fixtures shall not exceed a height of 20 feet and shall be aimed and shielded to minimize stray light trespassing across property lines and glaring into the adjacent roadways. Number 12, that only conforming wall signage is approved with this petition, and any additional signage shall be separately submitted for review and approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Number 13, that no LED, light band, or exposed neon shall be permitted on this site, including but not limited to the building or around the windows. Number 14, that unless approved by the proper local authority, any type of exterior advertising shall, such as promotional flags, streamers, or sponsored vehicles designated to attract the attention of the passing motorist, shall be prohibited. Number 15, that the specific plans referenced in this approving resolution shall be submitted to the inspection department at time the building permits are applied for. Number 16, pursuant to section 13.13 of the Livonia Vision 21 zoning ordinance as amended, this approval is valid for a period of 1 year only from the date of approval by city council, and unless a building permit is obtained, this approval shall be null and void at the expiration of said period.
Support.
Support.
By Mr.
Chairman.
Ventura. Mr. Ventura.
Which way do we want to go?
The gate or the,
Yeah.
I
figured there'd be a number.
I
figured there'd be a
An
17.
addition to his motion to the effect that the planning department and the inspection department would consult with the fire department to ascertain the desirability of the gates with the lockbox or closing the Laurel entrance completely.
so the preferred, or the preference would be that a discussion takes place with the fire department. If they say they want a gate, they can have a gate, otherwise.
With the
it would-
lockbox, right?
With the lockbox, otherwise, we would just recommend that they close that completely.
Correct, yes.
Is that
Agreeable.
agreeable to the maker and to the supporter? And Mr. Tormina, do you understand?
I understand. Do you want to further indicate that if a gate is desired, the restrictions on the use of that gate?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
If the gate is preferred, do we want to include restrictions on the use of that gate, i.e.
That it-
only for fire
Strictly
department
fire, yeah,
purposes?
like-
Only for public
And that it
safety
be closed at all
reasons.
times, any signage that, could be mounted on it to also
Yeah, I think that's
prohibit?
a good idea, yes.
Okay.
Agreed.
Sounds reasonable to everyone? Sounds
Fine with me.
All right, excellent. Any other discussion on the motion? This is a motion to approve. If there's no other discussion, please call the roll.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero?
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley?
Aye.
Mr. Ventura?
Aye.
Caremagna votes aye. Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes aye, and motion passes. We'll go to city council with approving a recommendation. Thank you for working with us, and good luck with your expansion.
Thank you for all your consideration.
Thank you. All right, and that moves us on to item number 3.
Number 3 is petition 2022-07-02-17, submitted by Insight Management Consulting LLC, requesting waiver use approval pursuant to section 6.22 of the Livonia Vision 21 zoning ordinance as amended, to utilize a Class C liquor license, which is the sale of beer, wine, and spirits for consumption on the premises in connection with the operation of the existing movie theater Phoenix Theaters at 17310 Laurel Park Drive, located within the Laurel Park Place Shopping Center on the northwest corner of 6 Mile and Newburgh Roads in the southeast quarter of Section 7.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Tormina?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is a request by Phoenix Theaters at Laurel Park Place to utilize a Class C liquor license. The zoning of the property is C2 General Business. The theaters have operated at Laurel Park since around 1988, and over that time frame, there has never been a request to add an on-premise liquor license in connection with the theaters. Phoenix is now seeking a Class C license in order to, as they indicate, stay competitive in the marketplace. The petitioner believes that their application, believes that the serving of alcohol at all major theater, that to do this, they need to, that this is an amenity, that customers now expect. They indicate that the hours are limited from 9 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. Those are the theater hours, and that alcoholic beverages would be served in their original packaging located at the concession stand. So on-premise liquor licenses, like a Class C license, are treated as a waiver use in the C2 zoning district. They're regulated under section 6.22 of the ordinance. One of the special requirements is that a new licensed establishments not be located closer than 1,000 feet from any existing on-premise licensed establishments. When we look at the surrounding area, we note that there are 5 existing on-premise licensed establishments. This would include the Grand Tavern, Bar Louie, both of which operate Class C licenses, and then the Livonia Marriott, Courtyard Bar Marriott, as well as the Holiday Inn, which operate B Hotel licenses. So all of those establishments are within 1,000 feet of the Phoenix Theaters. And so this requirement would have to be waived by City Council, which they have the authority to do by separate resolution. There is another requirement, and that is that on-premise licenses not be located within 400 feet from a church or school building. There are no churches or school buildings that exist within 400 feet, so the proposal does comply with that requirement. Correspondence, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
We have a letter from our engineering division dated July 21st that reads, the existing parcel is currently served by water main, sewer, and storm sewer, and no alterations to the existing services are planned, so we do not believe that there will be any impacts to the existing systems. That letter is signed by David Lear, Assistant City Engineer. Next is a letter of no objection coming from the Department of Public Safety, Livonia Fire and Rescue, dated July 22nd, and signed by Brian Kukla, Fire Marshal. A letter of no objection from the Division of Police, signed by Scott Shapansky, Sergeant of the Traffic Bureau, and that's dated July 29th. A letter of no objection coming from the Inspection Department, signed by Jerome Hanna, Director of Inspection, and dated August 8th. Next, we have a letter from the Division of Police, dated July 22nd, and it reads, the proposed site is within 1,000 feet of Grand Tavern at 377-146 Mile and Bar Louie at 377-166 Mile. which both hold Class C liquor licenses for beer, wine, and spirit consumption on premises. Additionally, the proposed site is within 1,000 feet of the Livonia Marriott at 17100 North Laurel Park Drive and Courtyard by Marriott at 17200 North Laurel Drive, both of which hold a a B hotel liquor licenses for beer, wine, and spirit for consumption on the premises. After reviewing the plans with the Chief of Police, we have no objections to the waiver being granted, contingent that the petitioner complies with all state laws, city ordinances, stipulations, and conditions set by the Livonia Police Department Liquor Investigation Unit as approved by the Chief of Police, and stipulations and conditions set by the Traffic Bureau of the Livonia Police Department. That letter is signed by Jeffrey Ronayne, Special Services Bureau. Next is a letter of no objection from the Office of the Treasurer dated July 25th and signed by Linda Shield, Treasurer of the City of Livonia. And then a letter dated July 21st from our Department of Finance indicating that there are unpaid water and sewer charges in the amount of $1,424.02 due by August 10th. That letter is signed by Connie Cumpula, Chief Accountant. And lastly, we have an email correspondence from a person who gives her name as Lisa Kozdraewski. This is dated July 21st, and it reads, "Hello. I wanted to let you know that I think this will be a great addition to provide Phoenix Theater with a liquor license, as more and more movie theaters are allowing alcohol consumption, and this will help drive more business to this theater and will help increase foot traffic to the mall and, of course, the Detroit Marriott Livonia, where I am the Director of Sales. The Phoenix Theater has competitive pricing, and this will allow for more people to come and enjoy all of the offerings at the theater. Thank you." Again, this is from Lisa Kozdraewski, Director of Sales from the Marriott Hotels. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tormina. Any questions for our planning staff? All right, let's go to our petitioner who's in the audience. Feel free to come to either podium. Thank you for being here as well. Good evening.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Corey Jacobson. I'm the owner of Phoenix Theaters, and we've been in Livonia now since 2009, enjoying a pretty brisk business at the theater, and I think that Lisa was kind of unexpected, kind of really sums it up in the sense that we are someone that wants to offer amenities for customers, and right now, you look at all the other major motion picture theaters in the market, and everyone is selling liquor except us. And I think that, I don't know how many customers we lose because of that, but I think it's a nice amenity to have. Also, we are a Michigan-based company, based out of Farmington, and we have a theater in Wayne, we have a theater in Monroe, and we just opened a theater in Grand Rapids, and our Wayne Theater and also our theater in Grand Rapids has alcohol, and we really want to add Livonia as well as Monroe to that going forward. So, and we have also sell alcohol in Massachusetts and sell alcohol in Dubuque, Iowa, and we haven't had any issues with our customers selling this for actually the last 3 years. So that kind of convinced me that this was a good idea to introduce this, throughout our businesses.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Jacobson. Is there any questions for our petitioner? Ms. Smiley?
Sure, good evening. What's your plan for checking the IDs and storage of liquor in a safe place?
Well, you want to address some of these questions? I mean, this is Devin Cameron, and he is our supply chain analyst and also procures a lot of things for us, but is really familiar with where these guys want to store this here in Livonia. As far as checking IDs, we check all IDs of anybody who wants to purchase liquor in any of our businesses. And again, having done this now for 3+ years, and for tens of thousands of, hundreds of thousands of customers, we haven't had any issues. Dubuque was actually our first theater to have alcohol. Then we did it in Massachusetts, and then we started to stick our toe in the water here in Michigan. And it's really been something that, if anyone had any fears about this, I was one of them. And it's certainly proven that it hasn't been a problem for us, particularly if you're checking IDs. And unlike a really like a bar where someone can sit there for a long period of time and say, well, I'd like to have another. You know, right now, people are buying their beer or wine particularly, and they walk into the auditorium and watch their film, and you just don't see them again. So there's very, very few repeat customers for alcohol in a movie theater. So I think that's one really nice reason why this is a nice amenity, but we don't really receive any real issues of that we would typically have in another type of an establishment that sells alcohol. But as far as,
If I may.
yeah, go ahead, hop in here.
Devin Cameron, 714 East 13 Mile Road, Royal Oak. As far as addressing your specific questions, I know it's a little bit difficult to see because it's a huge building, but the red area is the service area. That's our concession stand. And this blue area is a locked closet. It's permanently locked, which is where we would be storing all the alcohol. And just like we do at all of our other theaters, everyone serving alcohol must be certified according to the MLCC. And we always have somebody behind the concession stand at all times that's designated to bring the alcohol over and give to the person. So that's how we operate.
Okay, I was just curious, and you're gonna serve alcohol from 9 o'clock in the morning on?
We serve all of our concessions all day, every day. You don't really get anybody purchasing stuff like
imagine
that at the time, but there's always somebody there, and the whole menu is available all day, yes.
Yeah, my question, yeah. I didn't expect a lot of problem drinkers at the Phoenix, but thank you.
Yeah.
At 9 in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for our petitioner? No other questions for our petitioner? Is there anyone in our audience wishing to speak for or against this? This gentleman would like to come forward and speak, so we'll give him an opportunity to come up to one of our podiums. Thank you for being here, sir.
My name is John Kleitch. I live in 37756 North Laurel Park Drive, Livonia. I'm about a half a mile from where the proposed, from where the theaters are, okay? I still go to work 5 days a week, so I think I got most of my head together, but the fact of the matter is I have a hearing loss, and so sometimes I don't understand some of the things that's going on. Now, the gentleman here told us about how many liquor licenses there were in the area. I wish that would have been on the proposal. Okay, it wasn't. I think our neighbors, the residents, should know how many there is within about a mile there. Okay, my feeling, I'm sorry. If you want to drink, you should go home and drink, okay? Don't drink and drive is my big thing, okay? I would like this to be rescheduled with the city giving us the residents, more information, particularly like on the liquor license that are within a mile there, okay? The residents need more information, okay? I understand there's more revenue for the city if the liquor license is given, okay? But I understand, does it make the city any better? That's a real question, okay? So, I don't know. Now, my question was answered again by the people. Yeah, they're gonna serve liquor from 9 o'clock in the morning all day long. So it's just another bar. If the liquor was going to be only done at the time the movie was showing, that's fine, in my opinion, okay? How are people gonna get home from things? They're gonna drink and drive, okay? I had a buddy of mine, well, he still is a buddy of mine, he's 93 years old. He was an attorney. He bought and sold, or was an attorney for buying and selling restaurants and liquor licenses, okay? And one of the days he was in the judge's office, and he says, he can't believe it. He says, I had a person here, and he was in jail, so I know he was sober. And the guy said, you know, Your Honor, I was too drunk to drive, I mean, to walk, I had to drive, you know. He says, I could have hurt myself. What about hurting all the rest of the people? That's baloney. Now, I would like it postponed, more information given out, and then have another meeting, okay? I know it's taking up more of your time, but I really feel, and once I heard that it was gonna be open from 9 o'clock in the morning, I almost flipped out on that one, okay? Thank you.
Thank you for your concerns, Mr. Kleisch. Thank you for coming. Is there anyone else in our audience wishing to speak for or against this? If not, we'll give our petitioner an opportunity to come forward again and give any parting comments if they wish.
I guess to really to address the 9 in the morning issue, we do so, you know, have movies that start at 9 a.m. So we aren't just opening this to be a bar. And Devin suggested that all of our concession items are sold, you know, for the minute we're open to the minute we close. And I don't want to really have a situation where we have, well, this part of the menu is good and this part of the menu is bad. And, you know, just having the experience inside these theaters for as long as we have selling alcoholic beverages, again, if I could cite a problem, I would, and I can't. You know, it's just not a situation like a bar where people, again, are sitting, you know, for long periods of time in one spot where they can just sit back and call the bartender over and order another drink. I mean, this is something where someone buys a beer or they buy a glass of wine and they walk down the hall in their auditorium and they're going to start enjoying their film. And, you know, we just don't see them again either for concession refills for soda pop or for alcohol. So I think that's something to keep in mind when considering this situation. So I hope that helps.
Mr. Jacobson, I think we discussed this a little bit at our study meeting, but the format of how alcohol is served is typically just a canned beer or a seltzer or something along those lines. It's not, you're not having a bar tender actually mixing drinks on the fly.
That's correct. And I think that sort of differentiates us from some of our competitors, you know, who do, you know, have bartenders, and that is not something that we wish to do. I think, again, this is just an amenity that we want to offer people. You know, one of the nice things is that we do a really nice display with all the bottles of wine, and, you know, people just want, you know, a pour of wine, and that's really where we're trying to get at. And, you know, have some craft beers and things. This is, again, not a situation where we're seeing people, and incidentally, our prices are too high for someone to get too drunk. So that is also a consideration in any movie theater.
Sure. Okay, yeah, because that's definitely where a lot of your revenue comes from. Is there any other questions or comments for our petitioner while they're up here? If not, I think you've answered all our questions. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, and good evening.
And I'll close the public hearing at this time, and a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Bonjero.
I'd like to offer an approving resolution that the request to utilize a Class C liquor license in connection with the operation of the existing movie theater, Phoenix Theaters, at 17310 Laurel Park Drive North is hereby approved, subject to city council approval and the following conditions. Number one, city council waiving the 1,000-foot separation requirement between this location and the other existing on-premises licensed establishments pursuant to section 6.222A, and number two, that a Class C liquor license at this location is strictly limited to the operation of a movie theater, with the provision that the waiver may be extended to a new user only upon approval of city council.
Okay, is there support for that motion?
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Bonjero, supported by Mrs. Smiley. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, if the secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Mr. Bonjero.
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Ventura.
Aye.
Chair Magno votes aye. Chairman Wilshaw.
Aye, and the motion passes. We'll go to city council with an approving recommendation, and we wish you luck with your continued business. Thank you for being here. And that takes care of the public hearings section of our agenda, we do have a couple items on our miscellaneous section, Mr. Secretary.
Number 4 is the approval of the minutes of the 414th special regular meeting held by the Planning Commission on July 12th, 2022.
All members of the commission were present for that meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes.
And is there support? Support. We have a motion that's by Smiley and Ventura to approve. If there's no objection, I think we can safely show 6 to approve those minutes. I don't see any objections. Next item is number 5.
Number 5 is the approval of the minutes of the 1,189th public hearing and regular meeting held by the Planning Commission on July 19th, 2022.
And all members were present except for Mr. Ventura on that one. Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes.
And support?
Support.
I have Mr. Bonjero with Mrs. Smiley making the motion. Is there any discussion or objection to showing 5 on that one to approve, with Mr. Ventura abstaining? I don't see any objections, so we will do that. That takes us to the end of our meeting. Is there any other business to come before the commission? If not, I will take one moment to note that we do have an empty seat here at our table for those of our folks who regularly view our commission meetings. And that seat is normally held by Mrs. McHugh. And we did find out that she has submitted her resignation. She has apparently found something better than the planning commission to do in her future, which is surprising because I always thought this was the pinnacle of most people's careers. But she did find better things to do. She has been on the commission since 2016 and has been a valuable contributor. She's also been involved in the city on the Plymouth Road Development Authority and other roles as well. So she's been a wonderful contributor. We certainly all enjoy Mrs. McHugh's participation in her company during these meetings, and we will miss her, and we wish her much success with her future endeavors. So I just wanted to note that. And if there's no other business, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, if I may, real quick, she didn't find something better to do. There is nothing better to do, but she's moving out of state, and Mark won't allow her to zoom in, so.
It's all Mark's fault.
There you go. Now the cat's out of the bag.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank
Smiley. And with that, Mrs. Smiley, would you be willing to offer a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
All right, and is there support?
I'll support.
All right, we have Smiley and Ventura on the motion to adjourn. If there's no objections, we will show 6, and the meeting will be adjourned at 8:37 p.m. We want to wish or thank Livonia Television staff for bringing this meeting to our community this evening, and we will wish the community a good night to Livonia. Thank you for tuning in.
You'd have to be